1162. I'm going all the way back. Near the banks of the Onon River in what is modern-day Mongolia, there's a boy that is born. His name is Temujin. Mongol shamans said that he was born holding a blood clot. Yes, a bumble clot in his hand, which was interpreted as him being destined to become like a great warrior. His father, Yasugwe, was a small-time kind of like chief of the Borjigin clan and one of the many struggling sort of Mongol tribes in the region, trying to basically just survive in this brutal terrain. I mean, it was like frozen winters, food was scarce, there was warfare all the time. And in that world, you either learned how to fight or you died. So Temujin's early life was pretty tough. When he was just 9, his father was poisoned by rival Tartars who were, basically sharing a meal, which was common back then. People would invite each other over, and then you poison a little bit of their food, bar drop them with a little Xanny or something, and then bang, he's out of there. So that one moment wrecked everything in the life of young Temujin. So with his father gone, his men abandoned the family, thinking that they weren't strong enough to lead anymore. Temujin's mother, Holun, was left with 5 kids, no protection, no husband, no money, and forced to basically survive off the land, just like eating wild berries that they could find, fishing, hunting small animals just to make it through the deadly, deadly Mongolian winters. Those early years taught Temujin that survival just required brutality in a lot of ways, right? His half-brother, Bektur, kept stealing the food he and his brother, Khazar, hunted. Temujin killed him. Yeah, and it wasn't out of anger. It was just like, hey, if you keep on stealing me and my brother's food, we're going to die. So either you have to stop or I have to kill you. And he didn't stop, so he's out. And that's just how it was, I could imagine being raised by Genghis Khan. He'd be like, oh, you have it so easy. Back in my day, I had to murder my half-brother. That's how I had to get by. So this is the world that he was in. His mother was furious, right? She's pissed because this was her son, the half-brother of Genghis. But she also understood the harsh realities, that they were living in would sometimes require harsher actions. So as he grows older, Temujin befriended a boy named Jamuka, who shared his ambition and kind of his charm. And they became what's known as Anda. This is basically blood brothers. This is like a sacred bond amongst Mongolian warriors of that time. And so, you weren't literally brothers, but you just kind of decided like, hey, here's the brotherhood that I choose. And what started as a deep friendship would later explode into one of history's most ferocious rivalries for control. I mean, maybe ever. I mean, it's like almost like biblical, the scale of this conflict. So we'll get to that later. Around 16, Temujin married a woman named Bort from the Konkrit tribe, fulfilling a promise that his father had made years earlier. This marriage would change everything. Not long after, Bort was kidnapped by the Merkits. This was basically a neighboring tribe that was seeking revenge for an old grudge against Yasugwe, who was Temujin's father. Instead of accepting this as kind of fate, Temujin acted. He rallied any allies that he could. He got his blood brother Jamuka and his father's old friend Tongro Khan, the leader of the Karite tribe, and together they launched this raid to go get his wife back. And the mission was successful, and his wife Bort was rescued. This was Temujin's first real military campaign, and it showed what he was becoming. This was a leader who could unite people, inspire loyalty. He could plan an effective attack. And above all, he was showing people hey, don't F with me. Don't F with my people, or I'm going to have to get it back in blood. And that's just what type of time he was on. But victory, in this case, came with some complications. Soon after, Bort gave birth to a son, Jokai. And because of the timing, his paternity was questioned. And this was a scandal that would haunt Temujin's family and his empire for years. This created a succession problem that we will talk about. These early experiences of, betrayal, hunger, loss, kidnapping, warfare, and, the lessons of loyalty shaped this young Temujin. And he learned that noble blood meant nothing without the strength to defend it. It doesn't matter who your daddy is. If you can't defend what your daddy gave you, then you ain't got it. So from suffering, he built up this sort of toughness, and from betrayal, he learned strategy, and through survival, he began the journey that would turn him from Temujin into the Genghis Khan we know today. So between 1185 and 1206, Temujin went from being an outcast fighting to survive to becoming the undisputed ruler of all the Mongol tribes. He literally united this entire landmass of kind of battling tribes into one kind of united kingdom. And his rise wasn't just like luck or brute force. It was a ton of strategy and revolutionary thinking. So most Mongol chiefs relied on bloodlines and family ties for power. But what Temujin did was the opposite. He built his strength on loyalty and merit. Anyone who proved themselves, whether they were an outcast, an enemy, just a regular soldier from, like a low birth, had a place by his side if they were good. And what mattered to him wasn't your birth, but it was your loyalty. And again, in America, I think we get kind of wrapped up in these ideas of meritocracy, like, yeah, give the best job to the best people. But that's not how most of human history has gone. Most of human history was kind of, cronyistic and, nepotistic, you could say. It was all just like, oh, if your dad was this person, then you are now this person. Like, it was all very regimented in these sort of class hierarchies. So for Genghis Khan to see this and be like, I don't care who you are. If you're down, I'm down. And that's what he did. So as historians note, Temujin's real genius wasn't just in battle. It was how he was reshaping this old hierarchical society. He promoted people based on their talents and their courage. Two of his best generals, Subutai and Jeb, came from these kind of humble, kind of like lowly backgrounds. So Subutai was a blacksmith's son who went on to become one of the greatest military strategists in history. Jeb earned his position after shooting Temujin with an arrow in battle and then boldly admitting it and offering to serve him. I mean, imagine that. Temujin, aka Genghis Khan, gets shot with an arrow in battle, and he goes, I need that guy. Who was that? Who hit me with that thing? Because that was a dot from 50 yards out. I mean, like Patty Mahomes style. And he goes, we're drafting that man. So he's literally like impressed by his bravery and his honesty and accepts him. And that moment really, I think, captures his philosophy. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care if you try to kill me. As long as you are down and you're loyal and you're good at what you do, you're on the team. But not every relationship survived in this kind of new world order that he was creating. His bond with Jamuka, once his literal blood brother, collapsed under the weight of this ambition. So in 1201, Jamuka rallied several tribes and was declared Gur Khan, or the universal ruler. And at the Battle of Khoitan, Jamuka's forces decisively defeated Temujin. Literally, he destroyed his own brother and forced him to retreat and temporarily go into hiding. But Jamuka made a mistake. He brutally executed prisoners by boiling them alive, which, I mean, people look back at history and they're like, oh, they did crazy stuff. This was so brutal that it disgusted many of his own followers. And over the next few years, his warriors began to defect. They thought this guy's too brutal. He's too much of a bloodthirsty warlord. And they started to go with Temujin, whose reputation was known as being way more fair and, had much more respect for meritocracy and loyalty. And so by 1204, when Jamuka allied with the Naimans, which is just another troop or tribe nearby, Temujin had rebuilt his strength and actually defeated the entire coalition. And then in 1206, a massive tribal assembly, or what was known as a Kurultai, was held near the Onon River. And there, Temujin was formally proclaimed Genghis Khan, which literally means like, the overall like ruler of the universe or the oceanic ruler. And it wasn't just a political title. It carries like a divine sort of element with it. He claimed to rule by the will of the Tengri, which is like the eternal blue sky. Basically, this idea that heaven itself had chosen him to unite the entire world under one law. And this law was known as Yasa. This was basically like a revolutionary legal code that governed everything from war to justice, trade, and even like social behavior. So although the full text of the Yasa law was lost, historians like Ala ad-Din Juviani wrote down a lot of the key principles. And let me just say, some of these principles are a little harsh, but they probably got the job done.